Most of the blocks they use are rounded. And this is a picture of one of the side tunnels where they removed the dry stone wall and tried to empty it. As you can see, well, the scale of this is maybe 60 centimetres at the lowest point. In other words, it's too small for a person to be walking in and up and down these tunnels. For me, the tunnels serve as a technological function rather than one for transporting people during ceremonies. I'll go on to that in a moment why I think so. Basically, this is what we do with the material. Once we've removed it, we take it outside. We have people looking through the material. There have been one or two minor artefacts discovered, but by and large it's just the stone material. So another piece of dating evidence, in the side of the tunnels, which preserved in a vacuum, we were able to find a piece of wood which was carbon dated at 3 different institutions, giving us an average age of 34,000 years, plus or minus 5,000 years because of the margin of error. And this date of upwards to 39,000 years, again, it doesn't give us the exact age of the pyramids, but what it does do is it gives us another date to work with. And we can say that the material that was there to create the pyramids and the tunnels was deposited 40,000 years ago. So now we have 2 dates to work with. We have 12 to 15,000 years and 34 to 39,000 years. So, objects that we found within the tunnels. This is about 80 to 100 metres into the tunnels. We call it the egg-shaped megalith. Megalith's not the right word, but the Bosnians used it and it's stuck. This is a sculpture. It's a poured material. It's not a natural sandstone. It was once a liquid. It was poured, set into this shape. And what was interesting about this object is that through dowsing and georadar, we found that underneath, below, there was an underground source of water running in the same direction that the egg shape is pointing towards, which may serve as some significance, because later on they discovered a second object. The first one was 1 ton, and this object here is 3 tons. Again, they found an underground source of water running below. And the third object they found, this is called the K2 megalith, and it weighs 7 tons. Again, same material, poured, set into this specific shape. What they found under the largest of the megaliths was that instead of there just being 1 underground flow of water, there were actually 2 flows, and they were intersecting each other directly underneath the centre point of this object. And the crossings of the water potentially create an energy vortex, and this object may be interacting with this naturally created vortex. Inside the object, they used georadar, and they found a hollow space with a metallic object inside it. So potentially what we're seeing here is some kind of ancient technological device. And here you can see that it's sitting on a plinth, so they specifically chose this location, almost certainly because of the crossings of the water. Now, I mentioned that those megaliths were pieces of technology, and okay, they don't look like technology that we know of. But another thing that was found was that in the tunnels, at the closest towards the megaliths, the concentration of negative ions was up to 40 times higher than outside fresh countryside air. And so we believe that maybe these megaliths are interacting with the water underneath and creating some kind of ion exchange between the atmosphere and the water running below. Now, where is this water running from? Almost certainly it's coming from the pyramids themselves. Because in December this year, we found a section of the tunnel, December last year, sorry, we found a section of the tunnels that were completely unblocked. They didn't have any fill material, but what they did have was channels of water. Also, the dry stone walls were different. Instead of them just being rounded sandstone, they also had compositions such as granite, basalts and limestones. They were much bigger as well, much grander, and they weren't actually marking side tunnels. They were more like supports for the walls. And this is why I think there's functionality in these tunnels rather than just a place for transportation, because where you don't have these huge supportive dry stone walls, you have the fill material, and the filling material is bracing the walls apart, whereas in these areas where there's water, there's the dry stone walls instead holding back the walls. And I think it was this close-up of the dry stone wall, and I think these sections are important because it allows prolonged contact between water and the atmosphere, so ionic exchange between the atmosphere can occur, because we're discussing Tesla technology. This beam of electromagnetism at the top of the pyramid, if you look at Tesla's rainmaking machine, how that functioned was that it was a tower and it had a huge voltage pumped through it. It was more high powered than a pyramid, but essentially what happened was there was a charge differential between the atmosphere and the top of the tower, because the groundwater below the tower was pulling away these ions, and so the atmosphere was the water in the atmosphere was being attracted to the top of the tower. And this is what I think these tunnels are for. They're actually there to pull away the water from the pyramid and create this ionic exchange between the water and the atmosphere to have this differential at the top of the pyramid. You'll also notice that in the centre of these channels, some people, skeptics, say, oh, this is just natural, it's just natural caves. You can see in this photo here that there's a channel, a deeper channel, a cut, a groove into this tunnel. And you can see this is a photograph under the water, underwater orbs as well. That's pretty cool. And this channel stays in the middle of the tunnel, even round the corners. So again, nature cannot do this. This was purposely designed this way. This is accurate mapping with theodolite we did this summer of the tunnels so far excavated. The purple mark off side tunnels, and the yellows mark, I think they mark dry stone walls as well. The water tunnels I've just shown you run off in this direction and this direction. And the direction of the pyramid itself is over here somewhere. It's about 2.5 kilometres away. So I was talking about the exchange of ions between the water and the atmosphere in the tunnels. And well, if you compare the form of the tunnels, which seem pretty random, if you put it over an alveoli of the lung, the shape and form is quite similar. And the reason why alveoli is the shape it is to create an efficient exchange of gases between the body and the lungs. Going back to the triangle, with georadar and seismic reflection data, they also found that each of the 3 pyramids had underground sources of water that were actually meeting each other in the centre of that triangle. So the idea is that these channels were artificial, and they were collecting the water from the pyramids for some purpose. Now, if you're familiar with the theory that if you put positive emotions into water, you can program it, and likewise negative emotions program it. Well, the pyramids, they are different shapes, different size, different materials, and so potentially each pyramid can charge one of its water sources different from the other one, and then they're collecting these 3 different types of charged water to use maybe for the benefit of health rituals. This is one of the natural springs, well, I say natural, this is one of the springs coming out from Temple of Mother Earth. And truly, as James will attest, it is the tastiest water I've ever had. James?
It's the best.
Yeah. It's really something to...
Anything could be better than what we get.
Yeah,
It's crystal clear, ice cold water, isn't it?
yeah. So We call this guy here the machiner. This was a local miner who worked around the corner in a local town around the corner from Bisaco. And he's worked in the mines all his life, so he's a digger. He knows how to dig and what he's doing with being underground. And he was working for 3 weeks, and he made the observation that how his endurance in the tunnels wasn't normal. He was able to, literally, he was start morning, he would dig, and he would continue without a break right to the end of the day. And he made the observation, you know, I'm 60 odd and I couldn't do this back in the tunnels. I couldn't do this in the coal mines. What's special about the tunnels? And the negative ions, for one, a great hangover cure, because you go inside there and it really does remove the fog of your mind. You go in for half an hour, and you're coming out buzzing. Your mind is just running as fast as it possibly could, and I believe it's because not because of the energy, but because of the negative ions. Although the energy does have some impact, because they also, one guy from Slovenia called Pelko, he brought with him a curling camera, which is a replica from what Russians used. And what you're able to do with it is put each of your 5 fingers inside the camera, and it recreates with computer software the whole aura of the human body. And what he found was that out of 70% of the people that went into the tunnels and worked for 5-6 hours, 70% when they came out had a stronger aura than when they went into the tunnels in the morning. And usually you would expect the auras to be less strength, have less strength, because if you're working and exerting all day long, you're going to be losing your energy. But that wasn't the case. Okay, any questions so far? Yes?
Did anyone out of the water you go on that? Did anyone actually analyse it to see whether it was having any calcium phosphate?
The analysis that was done is that absolutely pure, clean, 100% drinkable water. Yes. No, and also there was no bacteria.
No minerals in it at all?
I can't remember the mineral analysis, but from what I understand, the mineral content wasn't anything special. It was just like any other water in the area.
Like bacteria for
Yes.
Do you know the tunnels were filled?
Yes.
Did you get an age of how long ago they were filled up?
This is what we're hoping. We're hoping to find some carbon that we could hopefully date. The problem is that the wood that we did have was sealed in an airtight vacuum in the wall of the tunnels, whereas the conglomerate is a lot looser and it's not airtight, so there is chance for decay to occur. So we might have lost any valuable evidence in that case. Okay, yeah. So this is one of the latest discoveries that was made in July this year. A team, SBRG in fact, had brought along a georadar, and what we did was we scanned the floor of the tunnels because we wanted to see if there were any underlying structures, or indeed if there were any other tunnel systems beneath the ones that we'd found. And at this location here, you can see X marks the spot. We found this very unusually shaped object, and it's 4 meters totally.
How many X's and then it's being like,
This is hollow space here.
right?
This here is false image, and also at the top it's false image. So
What does false image mean?
it's how the computer analyses the data that's come back, because it cannot compute certain angles, so it creates a false image.
So are they X's then?
Well,
Is it just the one X that actually exists?
potentially this may actually be a reflection. If there's water in the sediment below, then this is a reflection. But if there isn't water, then it means that this is a true image as well as this one. So we have 2 diamond shapes with hollow spaces.
Is there something in the middle of the second one?
gold.
Yeah, potentially there is an object, but we know that there's air inside these tunnels, inside these objects, which means that they're completely sealed because no water or anything has been able to get inside and fill them up.
And this is the temple of the...
No, this is in the tunnels underneath all the pyramids, 2.5 kilometres away,
Oh, right, okay.
leading to the pyramids. Yeah. This is the image from the detector, non-ferrous metal in the cavity. So where the rectangle is, this is the location of that structure, and we started excavating. The plan was to create our own tunnel because the workspace in the tunnels is very small, and we had to dig to a depth of 4 metres. We needed to enlarge the space, so the plan was to create our own tunnel connecting 2 others, and to dig downwards to create a ramp to this structure. Like so, this is the new tunnel that we made, and well, after we'd gone maybe 3-4 metres into the wall, and we were maybe another 2 metres away from reaching the other side, we found this object. As you can see, it's completely different from the surrounding material. Rather than it being a rounded riverbed deposit, it's an angular, rectangular, well-faced sandstone block. And so we slowed and we wanted to see what it was, and we cleared around it. And we found that it was what may look like here a careful, just a pile of stones, but these have been specifically arranged in this way. This object actually turned out to be in the middle of a roughly egg-shaped chamber. And what we'd actually done is accidentally found a new chamber that had been previously undiscovered, which looks something like this. Here you can see it has 5 minor tunnels and 1 major tunnel. This would be potentially where people could access this chamber before it was blocked up. As is with all the other side tunnels, they have a dry stone wall marking it, but these are smaller than the rest of the dry stone walls. In fact, they're smaller side tunnels. They're only 30 centimetres in height, which is why I'm pretty certain that the function of these tunnels isn't for people to be walking up and down. Again, here is another one. You see the dry stone wall around the side tunnel and the fill material inside. You can't quite see it. There's 2 more side tunnels here and here with the object in the centre. Okay, the critics, they'll also say that there aren't any artefacts that have been discovered before. This is just a blatant lie. This was found in the tunnels, and if we take the lines, we can actually compare them to lines of topography in the local area. This could potentially be an ancient map of the thanks.
How would you dig a 30 centimetre high tunnel? How would anyone dig that in the first place?
Yeah, it's difficult. You can't see it. Well, see, I have a theory about the actual material in the tunnels. I will say it now that you brought it up. Basically, if you look at the Pyramid of the Moon, and you look at the clay layers in between the sandstone blocks, the clay layers look like they've been deposited by nature. They're very finely laminated. It's not something that we would consider doing when constructing something out of clay. We just have a blob, one big layer and then another layer. But what they've done is they've deposited each layer of clay in these thin layers and then put another block of sandstone on top. And so one of my ideas is that, well, if they can do this with the clay material, which is fine grain, very fine grain material, why couldn't they do this kind of building material with coarse grained? And perhaps this conglomerate that the tunnels are cut into have actually been created artificially, the same as the rest of the pyramids. And it's there are a few pieces of evidence confirming this, but again, this is right at the beginning of the research, and we really have so many more questions than answers to give. You know, it's difficult. This is an artefact found on the tumulus, and it looks like it was used to cast metal. The inside of the moulds actually have a glaze of different material to the stone, so it looks like they've been pouring things in which tarnished and adhered to the stone there. And this small stone, it's only about this big here. It was found in the tunnels this year. Under a microscope, this triangular shape, it was cut by a very sharp and accurate object. It wasn't just random marks created. The angles on this pyramid is 51.5 degrees. Again, another object found on the tumulus. It may represent a human foot. But it's not just pyramids in Bosnia either that is strange. The Bosnian country doesn't have any archaeologists, or if they do, not very many. They rely on the European Union to send their archaeologists to carry out field studies. And they've got into a habit of anything that doesn't make any sense or they want to play down, they'll label it medieval. So what you're looking at here is a medieval stone block. And if you ask them why, what did they make them for, you don't get an answer, they don't know. But these are found in strata below the medieval layers, so clearly they are older. And they're similar to the stone spheres found in, Costa Rica? Yeah. This one here is made out of a sandstone. We have others made from basalts, limestones, granites. This one here is a sandstone that hasn't been excavated. People, when they're digging the foundations of their homes, are often pulling them out of the ground. So I think there's about 60 so far uncovered, but there's going to be a lot more found. And actually they're not perfectly spherical either. They're bulging in the centre, like a planet or a star, which it may represent symbolically. Another site, this is 100 kilometres south of the pyramids, huge megalithic blocks on top of a mountain or a hill. Again, you can go here, it has a fence around it with a European Union badge saying they're looking after this site for archaeological research, which isn't the case at all, because you can walk to this area and happily pick up ancient Greek pottery from the surface and put it in your pocket. There is no interest in sending archaeologists here to carry out an investigation, almost certainly because they don't want anyone to think, oh, hold on a minute, this isn't medieval. So I was talking about other pyramids in the area. This one I came across last year. It's about 4 kilometres south of Temple of the Dragon Pyramid. And as very important is that, again, it's orientated north, south, east, west, like every other pyramid. And you can see the similarities in shape between the moon, this is the Pyramid of the Moon, and this pyramid. You see here, there's this strange bulge as here. You also see a rise here and a rise here, just like on the Pyramid of the Moon.